Okay, so today's main podcast, would like to talk about the very interesting articles, which is written by Mongkot Napaumporn in 2023 in a series on migration in South Asia. Um, its article name is the Forgotten Stateless Vietnamese in Thailand. It opens very interesting introductions with the interesting point is that from around 1990s, there have been a significant number of irregular immigrants entering Japan. So the Japan's Bureau of Immigration indicates that there are 6 countries from which accounting for 73% of these immigrants into Japan. And they are Thailand, Korea, China, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Iran. And interestingly enough, the stateless Vietnamese are one of the groups from Thailand, Thai migrants. Yeah. Though born and brought up in Thailand, they have no Thai nationalities as their parents were Indo-Chinese refugees victims, escaping the first Indo-China war. So that start a very interesting topics of this article. So looking back to the statelessness situation in Thailand, by 2020, Thailand is currently hosting one of the world's largest populations of stateless people, number at 480,549 registered stateless people with the National Civil Registration System. A data is provided by UNHCR in 2020. So according to the Thai National Security Council, these stateless people were registered into 18 different categories based on their country of origins, ethnicities, and period of arrivals. So there are 18 different categories of these stateless people. And there are also from Vietnam, China, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and ethnic minority groups, just to mention some cases. So the Vietnamese refugees fleeing the Indochina War and their descendants are one of these groups being registered under the term displaced persons from Vietnam among 18 groups. The historical records confirm that Thailand had accommodated several groups of Vietnamese refugees since the mid-17th century. And those families have been in Thailand since before World War II, which is often called as the old Vietnamese generation, was able to be integrated into Thai society quite well. However, those Vietnamese refugees fleeing the Indochina War, who's often called as new Vietnamese generations, and those later on registered as stateless persons, struggled for years to settle down Thailand. So these are some of the examples that exemplify an extreme scenario of the later group of Vietnamese in Thailand who was denied Thai nationality and socio-economic rights over the past decades. So these groups were rendered stateless, and a number of them decided to move onwards to seek a better life in other countries. And Japan is one of the destinations. So this is quite interesting study about this group of Vietnamese, which can contribute to our better understanding of one of the root causes of ongoing statelessness in Thailand and in the region, and also to show us the nexus between migration and statelessness. So we're going to explore national legal frameworks, policy measures, and geopolitical complexions to identify this driver that contributes to the policy making on this particular population, and analyze the extent to which the stateless Vietnamese had been politicized over time. So this is based on real life situations and experiences of some stateless Vietnamese. This also identifies lessons learned and existing challenges. We're going to the first part on a historical landscape of migrations of Vietnamese into Thailand. And then we'll go to the second part, discussing the politics of belonging of Vietnamese refugees fleeing the Indochina War, and analyze the way the matter had been politicized. And then we'll go in to discuss the onset of statelessness in Thailand and a shift in policy to address legal status and nationality problems of the stateless Vietnamese. Before we go into discuss the existing gaps, recommendation to address the stateless Vietnamese in Thailand situation and stateless Vietnamese who moved onward to Japan and other countries. So let's go to the first part. The Vietnamese refugees in Thailand from accommodation and to restrictions. So Thailand has been home to different groups of ethnic Vietnamese. The majority of them fled their countries due to various reasons, such as religious persecution, civil war, and political violence after the country's reunification war. But not all of them had to live their lives as stateless people. Since the mid-17th century, there have been 4 waves of the migration of the Vietnamese refugees to Thailand. The first wave is the refugees who arrived before World War II or before 1945. The second group of refugees were who fled the first Indochina War and the aftermath from 1946 to 1954. The third groups of refugees who came after the reunification of Vietnam from 1975 to 1995, before Vietnam joined ASEAN and normalization of Vietnam's U.S. diplomatic relationships. And the fourth waves are today's urban refugees and asylum seekers from Vietnam. Let's go to the very first group of refugees of Vietnam, arriving before World War II. So according to the historical records, Thailand at the time was called Siam, has welcomed many foreigners, including refugees from the region which was once called Tonkin and Cochin China, the old terms referring to the northern and southern region of Vietnam. It was under the reign of King Narai the Great, or Panarai Maharaj, from 1656 to 1688. The Vietnamese refugees fled anti-Christianity persecution and also a civil war between the two ruling families at the time in Vietnam, the Trinh dynasty and Nguyen dynasty. And in the Thamburi period in Thailand, King Thaksin the Great, or Thaksin Pamahalat, from 1767 and 1782, took a member of the ruling family of the Nguyen who escaped from the Tatisan rebels to take refuge in Thailand. And subsequently, in the Ratanakarsin period, King Rama I, or Puthayotphra Chulalok Maharaj, accepted another high-born refugees, Emperor Jalong, or his name is Nguyen Phuc An, who also fled the Tatisan War to Thailand. So from 1820 to 1883, many Vietnamese Catholics fled religious oppression and strict restriction on Catholicism to seek protection in Thailand. Under the French colonial rule over Vietnam from 1884 to 1945, there were additional groups of Vietnamese refugees fleeing through Laos and Cambodia and Thailand, including a significant number of people from central Vietnam who rebelled against the French authorities. Apart from Thailand and Vietnam's troubled relations from the mid-19th century, the two countries maintained a supportive relationships in the past. So the Thai legal framework during this period also reflected the openness of Thailand to foreigners, including Vietnamese refugees and migrants, irrespective of their status as refugees. So those who entered Thailand before 1927 were considered as lawful immigrants and provided with the right to stay permanently in Thailand. Thai immigration laws until 1945 allowed undocumented persons to enter and stay in the country and granted them an identification paper at the point of entry. In addition, discrimination against specific groups of people in the acquisition of Thai nationality did not occur during this period. Thai nationality was automatically granted to every child, including those from Vietnamese refugees born on the territory or under the jus soli principle of international law, and to children born to a Thai father who married a foreign or Vietnamese woman, or the jus sanguinis principle. So these Vietnamese who reached the age of majority and have been in Thailand for at least 5 years could apply for a naturalization process. And to a Vietnamese minor whose father has obtained a Thai nationality by naturalization, it is also be done. So Thailand managed to unite people of different ethnicities and people who came to Thailand from other countries, including these groups of Vietnamese through permanent settlement and Thai nationalities. Although concrete evidence was still lacking, it was presumed that around 10,000 persons of ethnic Vietnamese with Thai nationality had remained in Thailand since the UNHCR period. Let's go to the second part. The Vietnamese refugees fleeing the First Indochina War and its aftermath from 1946 to 1954. The second wave of Vietnamese refugees occurred during this first Indochina War and following the battles after the French reoccupied Indochina after the World War II. Due to the Battle of Ta Kek on 23rd March 1946, a large number of Vietnamese had been living in Mekong River towns in Laos crossed the Mekong River to be safe in Thailand. Other groups in Savannakhet and Vientiane fled after the French retook the cities on 15 March and 25th April in 1946 respectively. And there was also an additional migration of Vietnamese refugees to Thailand in 1953 after the forces of the Northern Vietnam Independence Coalition tried to attack the French in Laos. So the actual number of the Vietnamese was unknown at the time. The Ministry of Interior tried to collect the information and statistics. The figure appeared to be unreliable due to different approaches used, such as the target province for each survey. So in 1956, the first survey showed that there were 46,600 Vietnamese refugees living in 5 northeastern and eastern provinces in Thailand. In 1959, after a repatriation agreement was reached between Thai and North Vietnamese Red Cross societies, there were 70,032 Vietnamese refugees from 8 northeastern, eastern, and southern provinces were registered for repatriation process. So after a repatriation program to North Vietnam came to a halt, the survey in 1965 indicated that there were 31,818 Vietnamese remained. However, this figure appeared to be lower, still much lower than reality, given the fact that Vietnamese were also living in other provinces as well. So the number of the remaining Vietnamese, including their children born in the countries, was more likely closer to 50,000, according to Kachatpai in 1978. So in the first year following their arrival, Thailand at the time showed to be very liberal towards these Vietnamese migrants due to the civil government foreign policy to support neighboring countries, particularly Laos and Vietnam, to regain the national sovereignty and independence from the colonial powers. Several resistance measures were undertaken, such as facilitation of the admission of these Vietnamese refugees free of charge, the exemption from the alien registration process, cabinet decision approving provision of humanitarian assistance, and a budget to loan them living expense funds, paid wages for those involved in highway constructions, etc. So when Thailand adopted an anti-communist stance during the Cold War period, these Vietnamese refugees were treated very differently and faced difficulties during their integration into Thai society, particularly under military regimes period. So these Vietnamese also, although were entitled to Thai nationalities, were targeted for nationality stripping. And although there were several policy changes to later remedy their situation, many remained stateless during this time. These Vietnamese refugees were officially recorded in the Thai civil registration system as displaced person from Vietnam. So data collected in 1978 by Burapat, showing that the number of Vietnamese refugees based on the 3 survey carried out by the Ministry of Interior in 1956, in 1959, and 1965 shows that in the following province. In Napaumporn, the survey showed in 1956 is around 16,200, and it increased in 1959 to 22,198 before reduced significantly to as less as 3,763 after the repatriation process in 1965. Similar situation also happened in Nong Khai province in the northeast of Thailand, which surveys at the number of 12,600 in 1956 and a significant increase to 16,155 in 1959 before reduced to 9,503 after repatriation in 1965. In other provinces in the northeast also show the similar trend. Napaumporn from 9,300 to an increase up to 12,533 before reducing to 7,192 after the repatriation. And for some southern province, for example, Surat Thani, the survey in 1959 shows that there were 213 people, and it reduced to 155 after the repatriation. So it's quite a small number. So other Vietnamese refugees arrived in Thailand subsequently, particularly after the fall of Saigon or Vietnam War in 1975. Thailand faced another phenomenon of the mass exodus of refugees from Vietnam came by sea and land. According to UNHCR's data, the displacement caused by the conflicts in Indochina were exacerbated by rivalries between the United States and the Soviet Union, as well as China, tested to a breaking point the capacity of states in the region to absorb the refugees waves. From 1975 to 1995, Thailand accommodated 160,239 Vietnamese refugees, but was no longer willing to allow more Vietnamese to settle into the country. So UNHCR started operating in Thailand in 1972, assisted in coordination and extension of aid, shelter, and services provided to those refugees, and seeking durable solutions, including a voluntary repatriation or resettlement to the third countries. The majority of this group managed to depart to resettlement countries, which, with the help of the international organization and the Thai government. So UNHCR fact sheet indicates that Thailand is also a destination for a number of refugee and asylum seekers currently, and which is estimated at 5,000 from over 40 countries, 40, residing in Bangkok and surrounding urban areas. And based on the results of UNHCR assessment of the COVID-19 impact on urban refugees and asylum seekers in 2020, during that time I'm still working for the UNHCR, it is evident that some groups from the ethnic minorities from Vietnam, for example Hoang, Montagna, were part of the population, but from King ethnic majority. So, as the Thai government provided no official protection for them, of course, because Thai is not the party to the United Nations Convention on Refugees, and so basically consider them illegal in the country. They're at risk of being detained on immigrations if they enter illegally or overstay their visas or stay undocumentedly. However, the Thai cabinet approved in December 2019 the establishment of a screening mechanism to distinguish people who need international protection from economic migrants. Although its implementation has been delayed, the regulation is expected to increase the protection space for these urban refugees, including those from Vietnam. And let's go to the third part, the politicization of belonging and stateless Vietnamese in Thailand. The politics of belonging was defined by Crowley as the dirty work of boundary maintenance. It is identified that the boundary where the politics of belonging is concerned are the boundaries of the political community of belonging. So boundaries that separate the world populations into us and them. The politics of the belonging encompass contestation between both in relation to the participatory dimension of citizenship, as well as in relation to issues of the status and entitlements, such as membership entails, such as the right to enter a state or any other territory of political community, and inside the right to remain there. So besides their struggle to be a part of the community, geopolitical complexion in Southeast Asia was also influenced by the big powers during the Cold War. So the problem of stateless Vietnamese in Thailand accumulated further. Their existence, including the issues around their citizenship, legal status, and entitlements, had been politicized and appeared on the political agenda. The politicization of stateless Vietnamese in Thailand showed both negative and positive consequences. It marked the power of the Thai state against the responsibility to protect to these stateless Vietnamese by deploying national security to dominate the political realm. The second is that the positive aspect of politicizing these Vietnamese was the fact that it contributed to the interstate political debates. leading to a shift in policy to determine proper solution to facilitate their permanent settlement in Thailand. So from the period of 1950 until 1970, Thailand came under strong influence of the United States and the anti-communist war. Its foreign policy with regard to Indochina was based on the belief that it represented the free war against the communist war, and was therefore largely hostile during this anti-communist era. At the domestic level, Thai military became the most powerful group in national policy making and made use of anti-communist rhetoric to maintain a grip on its political system. This further worsened its relationships with the neighboring countries, including Vietnam. Policies towards the Vietnamese changed dramatically from accommodation to restrictions due to the ideological antagonisms characteristic of the Cold War. These groups were pictured as spies, terrorists, and dangerous communists by military-controlled media and in Thailand, particularly during the Second Indochina War. So during this period, the group of Vietnamese refugees fleeing the Indochina War was politicalized and referred to in political debates. National security was deployed in public discourses to impose restrictions on and legitimize some discrimination against these groups. So from 1949, the Ministry of Interior has restricted the Vietnamese to reside in only designated provinces, mainly in the Northeast. In 1951, there were very special rules governed by the police department to administer the movement of the Vietnamese in the country. It said the refugee head for the family must inform the police, sub-village headmen, every time someone from outside the province wants to contact a member of his family. The headman must verify that the visit concerned the refugee's honest living, and if it concerned politics, the facts must be reported to the police special branch. They would be separated from the families and sent to other provinces when they were accused of committing a crime. So after 1957, it was estimated that at least an average of 200 and 300 Vietnamese per year was jailed without charges or trials. In these same years, other Vietnamese in the Northeast became victims of shootings, robberies, and the other acts of violence, with little or no action taken against their assailants by police. And evidence is found by flood in 1977. In 1970, a center known as the Coordination Center 114 was established under the Communist Suppression Operation Command, or CSOC, to supervise the implementation of policy towards the Vietnamese by relevant government agencies and to impose stricter policies and measures to control these Vietnamese refugees. The cabinet adopted a decision in May 1977, February 1981, and May 1984 to impose a further prohibition marriage between Thai men, particularly the government officials, and Vietnamese women on the account of potential threats to national security. A finding found by Burat in 1978. These resolutions were repealed into 2010. Over 3 decades, before it is repealed. But the impact of the policies on the legal status of these couples and their family, the children remains. The Vietnamese was also prohibited from engaging in key occupations, which happened to be the main area in which these Vietnamese typically has expertise. The children were not allowed to continue their higher education in general public university, except one with open admissions. They were allowed to start in Thai schools until high school only. So the immigration laws were made stricter also, and the nationality laws became more exclusive. During this period, nationality law introduced an idea on revocation of Thai nationalities on national security grounds. The amendment in 1960s targeted Vietnamese women who married Thai men by giving the reason that some countries involved female agents of their nationality in espionage and on sabotage or undermining national security of foreign countries. The acts including arrangement of marriage between their female agents and nationals of the target countries. It is appropriate to stipulate conditions on acquisition of the Thai nationality by marriage of an alien woman. Also, Ministry of Interior shall have the power to revoke her Thai nationality if the marriage is found fraudulent. Section 13 of the Nationality Law Amendment number 4 in 1960. So Thai nationalities on the basis of birth and on the territory could be withdrawn as a result on national security grounds if either parent did not have permanent resident status. So in 1972, a decree was issued under the then military government to retroactively revoke Thai nationality of children born in the country to parents who did not have permanent resident status, as well as to deny Thai nationalities of children born in the same circumstances after the decree was in effect. So due to the fear of expansion of communism into Thailand, this decree aimed to prevent those who came from countries under communist rule to acquire Thai nationality, targeting children born to Vietnamese. So the decrees, together with the continuing restriction on solely acquisition of nationality, adversely affected all ethnic minorities, including indigenous hill tribes who were often without any documents to prove their birth and permanent stays in the country. So several hundred thousand people were rendered stateless as a result of this decree. As found in Bun Rach in 2017, discrimination against this group of Vietnamese became an underlying cause of ongoing statelessness nationwide since then. And the period after normalization of Thai and Vietnam relations. In the early 1970s, there was an immediate reversal of the stand taken by the Thai government during the Second Indochina War. American withdrawal troops from Vietnam. Thai foreign policy was shifted from Thai-U.S. relation being central to Thai security to one of giving more priority to Thailand's neighbors, regardless of the differences in political and economic system. However, a real turning point in policy that shaped Thai-Vietnam relations, including solution to stateless Vietnamese in Thailand, was the accession of Chathai Chonawon as the Prime Minister of Thailand from 1988 to 1991, and his successors Anand Panyarachun from 1991 to 1992. Key factors that enabled the normalization of the two-country relations, including the Vietnamese withdrawal from Cambodia and Laos in 1989, the end of the Cold War, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, a communist allies of Vietnam at the time, and the more cooperative role of Vietnam, and accommodating attitude of Vietnam in ASEAN and the region on political and economic reforms. So after Thailand and Vietnam normalized relations, bilateral relations, solution to legal status and nationality problems of stateless Vietnam became a focus of interstate political agenda again. So Vietnam takes the issue of the ethnic Vietnamese residing abroad, including ones in Thailand, seriously. Although Vietnam recognized a single nationality It has directed its policy to encourage and create a favorable condition for persons of Vietnamese origin residing abroad to maintain close relations with their family and homelands and contribute to their building of their homeland and countries. All right. This is mentioned clearly under Article 7 of the Vietnam nationality laws in 2008. So, in December 1991, then Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen visited Bangkok, and in January 1992, another separate trip, Thailand's then Supreme Commander in Chief Suchinda Kaprayun and Prime Minister Anand Panayarachun visited Vietnam in Hanoi. The issues of Vietnamese refugees have been residing for several decades in the northern eastern provinces of Thailand was discussed during these trips. Vietnam requested the Thailand to accept these Vietnamese as citizens due to their long residence in the country. And contrary to the political environment during the anti-communist era, the politicization of these Vietnamese refugees during this period positively brought their problem into public attention as part of the ongoing political debates. By politicizing this matter, Vietnam diplomacy at that time was influenced Thailand to readjust its policy to address legal status and nationality problems, not only of stateless Vietnamese but also other groups in Thailand. So this led to a shift in policies. First is the shift in policy of facilitation of local settlement through permanent residence. In 1984, the first cabinet decision was issued to allow the Ministry of Interior to set out conditions and requirements for permanent resident status of stateless Vietnamese who were deemed as having a good moral character. The implementation of this policy was not successful because the application process was lengthy and strict. As a result, only 96 Vietnamese at the time was granted permanent resident status. So in 1992, National Security Policy on Displaced Vietnamese 1992 and 1994 was approved. This introduced a more comprehensive policy framework to facilitate permanent residence and settlement of stateless Vietnamese in Thailand, based on the fact that they had been in the country for generations and no longer return home. The policy detailed required action to address legal status and the rights of the Vietnamese, including the revision of relevant policies, measures, rules to expedite nationality application process for Vietnamese children born in Thailand and grant permanent resident status to their parents. Accordingly, another cabinet decision was passed in 1997 to revise the eligibility criteria and rules for granting permanent resident status to the first generation of the Vietnamese refugees who fled during 1945-1946. Recently, cabinets of Thailand approved in January 2021 a new set of criteria on determination of legal status and the rights of the people who had migrated to and stay in the country for a long period of time, and repealed a period decision on facilitated permanent resident of stateless population, including these Vietnamese. So these recent policies change enhance the access of Vietnamese to a wider set of entitlements associated with their legal immigration status, permanent residence, which will further facilitate, improve access to nationalities, human securities, and social benefits. So regarding to the remedy for the deprivation of the Thai nationalities, these Vietnamese refugees were rendered stateless by the 1972 decree that revoked and denying the Thai nationalities. It was impossible for them to reacquire Thai nationality unless there were special measures to help facilitate the application process and remedy the situation. In 1990s, the cabinet passed a resolution to grant Thai nationality to second and third generation of Vietnamese. In 1992, decree number 337 was repealed by the National Act number 2, and the National Security Policy on displaced Vietnamese in 1992 and 1994 was adopted to cope with legal status of the problem of the Vietnamese. In 2008, the Thai government passed an important amendment to the nationality law, aiming to completely address the loss and denial of Thai nationality under the decree number 337. Amended provisions allow those who were born in Thailand and affected by the decree to acquire Thai nationality by registration at the district office where they reside. To be eligible, the applicants had to provide, firstly, evidence through a civil registration of being born in Thailand or birth registration, and have been domiciled in Thailand for a consecutive period established at the discretion of the civil registration authority, or consecutive residence records. Second, those people have to demonstrate good behavior or acts done to the benefit of the countries. And due to this provision, a great number of the Vietnamese whose nationality was revoked or denied got back their Thai nationalities. So for the remaining stateless Vietnamese in Thailand, as of December 2020, Ministries of Interior of Thailand indicates that there were only 470 stateless Vietnamese registered as displaced person from Vietnam left in the civil registration record. However, this may not necessarily represent the real situation of the remaining stateless Vietnamese, because this number includes only the first generations who fled to Thailand and their children who were born before 1989. The figures excludes the remaining children who were born in Thailand after 1989 and the Vietnamese who have already been granted a permanent residence status but are still stateless to present. So, to better understanding the impacts of the previous discriminatory practice on the remaining stateless Vietnamese in Thailand, there are two brief case studies of Vietnamese in Thailand examined as followed. Saisun Tuan in 2005 recorded a story of Ms. Sudar, who was among ethnic Vietnamese in Thailand, was affected by decree number 337. She was born in Napaumporn province in northeastern part of Thailand in 1949 to the Vietnamese refugees family who fled the war during 1945 and 1946. According to the Nationality Act 1913, that was in force at the time of her birth, she acquired their Thai nationality under the jus soli principle, regardless of her parents' legal status. Later in 1972, her Thai nationality was revoked by the decree 337, and she became stateless at the age of 23 years old. So only when she was 33 years old, Suda was eligible to apply to restore her Thai nationalities again, based on the cabinet resolution in 1992. But the process took her 7 years to finally obtain her Thai nationality again. Another case study was Yuthana, a third generation Vietnamese refugee. His nationality problem was resolved after 19 years after he was born, although he should have been granted nationality at birth. Yuthapon was born in Udon Thani province, another southeastern province of Thailand, in 1985.
His mother and father was also born in Thailand in 1949 and 1950, respectively. Themselves and the children of Vietnamese are the children of Vietnamese refugees. So according to the Nationality Act 1965, youth now has Thai nationality by birth and should not be affected by decree number 337 because his parents are not immigrants. And despite this, from 1985 to 2004, he was treated as a stateless person and missed many opportunities. He only realized his stateless status when he was awarded a place at Chulalongkorn University Faculty of Medicine, one of the very famous university in Thailand, but it was denied entries due to the claim that he did not have Thai nationalities. So, like other stateless groups, Vietnamese encounter lengthy and complicated processes in this area. According to a report by Chiang Mai University and UNICEF Thailand in 2021, the processing time for application for naturalization or applying for Thai nationality by marriage can be over 730 days. For stateless people who are over 18, the nationality process involves even more steps. Checking criminal records, drug offenses, assessing whether they present any threat to the national security, etc. The Thai government should expedite resources to increase processing time as well as simplifying process. Breaking the cycle of statelessness requires an adequate safeguard in the law to grant Thai nationality to children born stateless in the countries. Stateless parents will continue to pass down statelessness to their children. Due to the delay in eradicating statelessness in Thailand, this status, like a heritage, goes on from one generation to the next. There were still a number of stateless Vietnamese from Thailand who have been living in other countries in limbo. Most of them was one registered as stateless person in Thailand, holding the ID card for a displaced person from Vietnam. It was one of the 18 groups. Some were born in Thailand and were eligible to acquire Thai nationality in accordance with the nationality law that was amended after they left the country. There were also a few cases of persons who have their Thai nationalities by birth, but were mistakenly registered as stateless. The tragedy was a consequence of years of terrorizing, degrading treatment and violation of their rights, including deprivation of their nationalities. In Japan, their lives were worsened due to their illegal entry and unresolved stateless status. Many were arrested and detained by the Immigration Bureau in preparation for deportation. It was always in vain, as they had no state which would accept them back, and many have wasted months or years in detention before there was any possibility of them being temporarily released. So to seek a proper solution to recover their losses, a study of their situation and profiles will first enable classification of their legal status and provide provision of legal assistance. So those Vietnamese who were remedied only after the nationality law was amended in 2008 were in need of an amnesty in order to allow them to return, since their granted stay permits in Thailand was terminated on the day they left Thailand illegally. Facilitated nationality procedures should be introduced, such as exempting them from fulfilling a requirement for a consecutive period of domicile in Thailand, or providing optional channels to verify their nationality at Thai embassies or consulates in Japan and foreign countries. So the lesson learned in the case of these forgotten stateless Vietnamese are twofold. Firstly, it showed that migration, especially forced migration, affects regional and international relations. Internal violence, oppressions, and violation of human rights force people to leave their home country. Some may flee to countries outside of their immediate regions of the crisis. The majorities yet often migrate to the neighboring countries within the region. The way in which Vietnamese refugees fleeing the Indochina were treated and how their issues were brought up as part of regional political debates will exemplify the impacts. So secondly, the situation of stateless Vietnamese from Thailand and Japan demonstrated the nexus between migration and statelessness. The protected situation of statelessness among these Vietnamese in Thailand drove them to irregularly migrate further to seek a better life in other countries. Due to their illegal entries linked to more than one country on the basis of birth, as in case of Thailand, descendant from Vietnam, and habitual resident in Japan. Finding solution to legal status and nationality problem of these stateless Vietnamese become very challenging. Meanwhile, this can be an opportunity for Thailand to dialogue and collaborate with our concerned countries, Vietnam and Japan, in this case, to rethink the lesson learned on the issues of migration and statelessness. Reviewing and learning from the past experience can contribute to guiding the search for protection and solution for stateless migrants from Thailand and even Thai migrants who are at risk of statelessness abroad to build their secure identity and lives in the long run. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.